Well guys, PaddleTek did it again. It's been a heroic comeback for this brand this year with their newer releases, and this one might just take the cake. So without further ado, let's dig straight into it. Both the new ESQ-C paddles and ALWC paddles come in at a price of $250, and you can get 10% off using code STSPICKLEBALL, making them $225. This code will only be live on the PaddleTek website for about a month, but is usable indefinitely at Pickleball Central. So wherever you decide to purchase from, you can get 10% off if you're interested in these paddles. I have to say right off the bat, there really aren't many negatives to speak of here, outside of the price. I do think they perform better than most paddles on the market, so I'm not even salty they're Gen 1 because ultimately it's the results on the court that matter. But what I will say is that really any paddle these days coming in at a price over $200 and not utilizing some brand new core or tech that would justify a higher price tag is certainly hard to swallow in my opinion. The original ALWC was $230, and now we are seeing the updated ALWC and the new ESQ-C paddles at $250. I don't really understand the extra $20 added to the price tag. They have new butt caps, which is nice because the old ones were very odd and quite annoying, and they have some lead fishing weights in the sides of the paddle which raise the twist weight. I don't really think these aspects justify the high price tag, but overall they are very good paddles. Right away I noticed it has a touch more power and pop than the original ALWC paddles. Not by much, but it's noticeable. The spin is absolutely top tier, and we will dive into the tangible metrics here in just a few, but the spin is incredible. I really like the longer handle. I'm 6'2" and have above average size hands, so the longer grip length really makes this paddle a viable option for me in my rotation. Even the control is pretty solid given how surprisingly large the sweet spot is given these are Gen 1 paddles. PaddleTek has implemented the same addition of perimeter weighting used in their TKO CX paddles by adding a couple tiny little lead ball fishing weights inside of the core at the edge of the paddle at the 9 and 3 o'clock positions, yielding a much higher twist weight than we would see without the addition of this interior weighting. They do this while keeping the swing weight super low, which is awesome to see. Okay, so here's the overall metrics for the ESQ-C 12.7mm, which I have to say are incredibly impressive, with notables being the swing weight of 103.1 and the twist weight of 6.62, which are really solid numbers given how thin this paddle is. The grip length is 5.5 inches, which has been increased by half an inch from the original ALWC models. And the new ALWC paddles now also have a 1/4 inch increase in handle grip length. The grip circumference is 4.25 inches. I would consider this a standard shaped paddle. And one more thing to really note here is how light these come in at. They have an average weight of 7.6 to 7.9 ounces, which coupled with this super low swing weight gives you a ton of options for customization with perimeter weighting. And here are the overall metrics for the ESQ-C 14.3mm, with notables being the swing weight of 106.5 and the twist weight of 6.74. Everything else is the same except of course the thickness, which is 14.3mm and does provide more control and a more plush feel off the face in comparison to the 12.7mm version. Okay, let's dive into some spin results. The ESQ-C 12.7mm comes in at 2327 RPM, and the 14.3mm version comes in at 2290 RPM. Given these results, the 12.7mm is now the highest spinning paddle in my database and in my testing overall, which is just crazy given how good the metrics are in the other categories. The dip I was noticing over the net is just crazy. The way it grips the ball gives me a ton of confidence. My slice returns, slice drops, and topspin drives and serves were all spinning so hard. I had people commenting on them saying, "Wow, nice spin," or "Dang, that was spinning like crazy, man. How did you do that?" And I would just tell them that I think it's mainly just the paddle. The new ALWC 12.7mm comes in at 2284 RPM and the ALWC 14.3mm at 2301 RPM. So we can see that the new ESQ-C is topping the charts, but they are all very tight, and I had higher and lower variations with all 4 of them. These results are just the average of 10 serves each. I think the ESQ-C 12.7mm with its insanity spin and the longer handle yielding a touch more power and pop is my top pick here. Speaking of power and pop, the ESQ-C 12.7mm comes in at 9.3 out of 10 for power and 9.2 for pop, and the 14.3mm version comes in at 8.9 out of 10 for power and 8.9 for pop. Comparing these results to the ALWC 12.7mm at 9.2 for power and 9 for pop, and the ALWC 14.3mm at 8.8 for power and 8.8 for pop, we can see that the new ESQ-C versions are a touch hotter than the ALW versions, but not by much. I don't think you'd really be able to tell much of a difference in play. For me, if I want power and want the best paddle out of the bunch here for power and pop, it is again the ESQ-C 12.7mm. I was ripping serves and drives, and speed ups were just slightly better than the other options here. This paddle is so dang fun, and with that insane spin, it really helps to keep the ball in the court even on high drives. Sweet spot wise, the ESQ-C 12.7mm comes in at a solid 8.9, and the 14.3mm version comes in at a 9. Comparing these results to the ALWC versions, we have the 12.7mm coming in at a 9 out of 10 for sweet spot rating, and the 14.3mm ALWC coming in at a 9.1. So all very tight. Something about the very first iteration of the 14.3mm version ALWC had me originally feeling like the perimeter felt a touch more dead than the 12.7mm version, but with the perimeter weighting, it's more in line with what you would expect sweet spot wise. Usually with a thicker paddle, you will undoubtedly get a larger sweet spot, but we don't see this all the time, and sometimes the sweet spot can vary paddle to paddle of even the same model. I will say when you get really close to the edge of the paddle, it doesn't carry the ball quite as far as a Gen 2 thermoform paddle will. These are Gen 1 paddles, so there is no edge foam around the perimeter, but the general sweet spot is still rather large. It just dies off hard closer to the edge. Overall, I am extremely pleased with the sweet spot size of these paddles, especially given that they are Gen 1. So props to PaddleTek in the sweet spot category for sure. Lastly, we have control. The 12.7mm ESQ-C comes in at an 8.5 out of 10, and the 14.3mm version comes in at an 8.7 for control, which really surprised me. I figured with how hot these paddles are off the face and the Gen 1 aspect, they would be very hard to control. But I have to say, they are above average in this category, which is wonderful given how good they are in the other categories. Again, with the added power and pop, you wouldn't think this is the case, but they do a pretty great job at controlling shots. I did have a few pop-ups that I would contribute to the hotter face of these paddles, but overall dinks, drops, and resets were all manageable, especially when comparing to other power paddles in the space. Comparatively, we have the ALWC 12.7mm coming in at an 8.6, and the ALWC 14.3mm coming in at an 8.8 in the control category. Extremely interesting results overall. I have to say, it's nice to be able to get this much spin and power while having such a large sweet spot. The extra length of the handle is extremely welcomed in comparison to the ALWC line, and the ESQ-C 12.7mm paddle has moved up to a contender for paddle of the year without a doubt. The price is definitely steep, but if you can swing it, I don't think you're going to be disappointed. If you're looking for solid power, some of the highest spin in pickleball, and a solid sweet spot with manageable control, look no further because this paddle is pretty awesome. If you want to see the pickleball machine that has been leveling up my game like crazy, click here. Make sure to subscribe for more videos just like this one. Have a freaking wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.